Xtalks connects professionals in the life science, medical device, and food industries with useful content like webinars, job openings, articles, and virtual meetings to help you succeed in your career. This food industry-focused podcast brings together some of our editorial staff to share insights into the latest B2B industry news to help keep you up to date. This week on the show, we're discussing the FDA warning against cooking chicken in NyQuil and a potential coffee shortage brewing. Enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Xtalks Food Podcast. I'm Sydney Perlmutter, Senior Food Industry Journalist and Webinar Moderator at Xtalks.com, and this week I'm joined by Aisha Rashid and Vera Kovacevic. Thanks for coming today. So I'm going to start us off with a story about a potential coffee shortage. So we've gotten some reports that coffee inventories in South America are declining so severely that reserves are predicted to be extremely low. So can we expect a coffee shortage? Well, one sign of that is that global coffee prices are increasing and will continue to do so amid market uncertainty driven by the supply shortages in Brazil, which is the world's largest coffee producer. So we've seen coffee prices being pretty volatile in recent months, and the situation is unfortunately predicted to get even worse in the weeks ahead as Brazil coffee exports hold on to their supplies to drive the prices up. And meanwhile, the rest of the producing world may not have the inventory to meet the growing demand either. So the projected coffee shortage is a result of both environmental and economic factors. So in terms of environmental factors, we have weather issues and lower supply, especially from the main Arabica coffee producers, including Brazil, Colombia, and Honduras. Those are some of the environmental factors. And there's also been a wave of persistent weather conditions that affects the coffee market dynamics in Brazil, which is facing severe dry spells. And in contrast with that, there's heavy rain that's affecting coffee crops in Colombia. So the rapid onset of climate change is also behind the changes being felt within the coffee industry. So this climate crisis shows no sign of abating, with adverse weather threatening to endanger growing conditions further. And these adverse weather conditions also hurt yields in Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua, among other coffee producers. However, the coffee shortage isn't just stemming from South American producers. Vietnam, which is actually the second largest coffee producer after Brazil, with Robusta coffee accounting for 97% of Vietnam's total output, is also witnessing a decline in stockpiles. So I had never heard of Robusta beans before, but they are a species of coffee bean that originates in Central and Western Sub-Saharan Africa. It's actually been making a comeback. So this variety is normally cheaper than Arabica coffee, and it's in strong demand as people are looking for alternatives to mitigate the impact of rising inflation. And Robusta is used by instant coffee makers, including Nestle South America, or as a blend in espressos. Now, economically, recession fears, war, and the energy crisis in Europe are also bringing uncertainties in terms of global demand. So all of these market dynamics are leading to price spikes in coffee around the world. And we're seeing coffee giants like Starbucks, Lavazza, and Costa who are absorbing these price hikes and then passing them on to consumers. And meanwhile, these brands often have sustainability initiatives working with farmers on best agricultural practices in coffee-grown regions. So all of this is occurring amid a continuous demand increase from anywhere between 1.5 and 2% year over year. So this has led to an 11% increase in the coffee stock price on the futures market. So the global coffee beans market reached $28.9 billion in 2021, and it's expected to reach a market value of $42.26 billion by 2027 at a compound annual growth rate of 6.3%. However, with the continued threat of environmental factors looming heavily over the entire coffee growing industry, finding ways to fight back against adverse weather seems beyond the reach of industry leaders at this point. So there's going to have to be other things to sort of mitigate this crisis. And a while back, we also talked about on this podcast, I think, lab-grown coffee. So I wanted to ask, given, potential coffee shortages and all the environmental factors that are affecting producers' ability to, keep up with the demand. Where do you see lab-grown coffee and other alternatives fitting into this solution? It's really similar to the talks that we've had about lab-grown meat and lab-grown dairy and things like that. But coffee is another one of those things that is in such high demand, but we can't always keep up with the demand. So what do you think about this potential coffee shortage and lab-grown coffee potentially helping fill in these gaps?
Yeah, I mean, this is not surprising, and it's very concerning, of course, because coffee is such a staple item. And I think we saw it coming because we know that coffee production is so resource intensive. And with all of the, things happening with the climate, it's really not surprising that coffee would be hit really hard. And I think unless we, take accelerated action to reverse, the effects of climate change to keep pace with how quickly the pace of climate change has been to, if we can reverse that just as quick at that same rate, I don't think things are looking too good. So yeah, to your question about things like lab-grown coffee and other alternatives, all that stuff is going to have to be a part of the mix, in my opinion, because, again, I don't see how this is going to be sustainable in every way, shape, or form, given the situation. And yeah, again, hugely concerning, not just for coffee drinkers and consumers, but also the livelihoods of coffee farmers and, all these people in poorer countries that are producing coffee. And it's going to take a huge toll on so many aspects and for so many people.
That's such a great point too. I hadn't even really considered that. I was just looking just at the commodity itself. But yeah, so the coffee industry employs probably millions of people around the world in some way, shape, or form. And it is the most consumed beverage in the entire world. So people are relying on millions of people, from farming to transportation to serving the coffee itself even. And it's such, I agree with you. It's not really a surprise because it is such a labor and environmentally intensive crop to grow. So I think like meat and like dairy, we're going to have to find alternatives. And I don't think coffee will ever be eliminated. People love it too much and rely on it too much. Yeah. But yeah, we might see
prices go up.
Yeah, prices are going up.
That's going to be, the first thing that's going to happen. So.
Yeah, Sydney, I was listening to you and you were like, coffee giants like Starbucks and Costa and maybe Lavazza will absorb the price hikes. And I was like, oh, wow, how nice of them.
Then,
yeah, okay.
No, we always are going to feel it no matter what. I mean, yeah, when they absorb it, they have to pass it on to us.
It's going to trickle down, right?
And I'm not a daily coffee drinker. I'll have it every other day, maybe every few days. But I will say, I think I have noticed a bit of a price increase just going to Starbucks and getting a tall, which is their version of a small beverage. I $5 and whatever. I was I know Starbucks is expensive, but it feels a little bit more expensive than usual. I don't keep tabs on how expensive it was a few years ago, but I do feel that it has maybe gone up a little bit. I don't know if you guys have sort of experienced the same thing.
Oh yeah, everywhere coffee seems like it's more expensive. The large coffees will be $7 or more, and it's wow, can I take this back? But yeah, I don't think lab-grown coffee will make up for weather disturbances and climate change going around the world. I don't think that will ever be able to make up for that.
Yeah.
Keep pace with demand, just in terms of scale. I don't think we're there yet at all with lab grown products like coffee or meat. So yeah, unless some kind of something, again, it has to be accelerated action, but again, we're not there. So it's going to be hard to fill the gap at present. So
yeah, it's still quite a niche little industry, you could say. I do think there will be, or there are less regulatory sort of laws to carve out in terms of lab-grown coffee as there are with lab-grown meat. It's just a little less controversial area, I think. But yeah, we're not there yet. I don't believe at this point it's any cheaper. It's probably more expensive because of how niche it is. So yeah, this is just another thing to keep our eyes out on, in the future, and see if something's brewing there. All right, well, moving on to a very ridiculous story. So the FDA last week issued a stern warning addressing a very disturbing trend among teens, and maybe not just teens, but that would be cooking chicken in NyQuil. So this is a TikTok dangerous challenge that encourages participants to cook chicken in a mixture of acetaminophen, dextromethorphan, and doxylamine. I hope I pronounced those correctly. But this trio of ingredients can be found in NyQuil and other over-the-counter cold medicine. So the warning letter by the FDA stated, one social media trend relying on peer pressure is online clips of people misusing non-prescription medications and encouraging viewers to do so. These video challenges, which often target youth, can harm people and even cause death. So the agency also stated that simply heating up the medication can make it much more concentrated and change its properties in other ways. So it continued, even if you don't eat the chicken, inhaling the medication's vapors while cooking can cause high levels of the drugs to enter your body. It can also hurt your lungs. So it's unclear at the moment how many people have participated in this trend, even though the FDA has stepped up to warn against it, calling it silly and unappetizing. Now, the National Capital Poison Center also delved further into the history of this challenge, and it actually first originated on Reddit several years ago, and it's enjoyed a recent resurgence in popularity thanks to TikTok. Thank you, TikTok. Okay. So on TikTok, the videos, which have been viewed by millions of people, depict people cooking chicken breasts on a stovetop, then adding NyQuil as sort of a braising liquid. And it is as disgusting as it sounds. So once the chicken is done, the excess NyQuil is shockingly poured back into the bottle.
Oh my God.
It's like cooking oil. You can't waste it. Or it's bad to pour down the drain. So the chicken turns out sort of blue tinged in color from it being sauteed in NyQuil, is then ready to be served. Bon appetit. So while the exact reason for the increased social media popularity of cooking chicken in NyQuil is unclear, it's possible that some people sought this method as a treatment for sore throat, cough, and runny nose that are often associated with COVID-19. But, it is safe when it's taken properly and in the recommended doses. However, too much NyQuil or other over-the-counter medicines can cause liver damage and even death. And another thing I wanted to add is that these medications are often abused in other ways too. This was just the first time I had heard about it being cooked in chicken. But of course, this isn't the only time that the FDA has had to issue a warning about other dangerous social media challenges, like one TikTok challenge that urged viewers to consume large doses of allergy medications, which is found in Benadryl and other over-the-counter products in order to hallucinate. So this was called the Benadryl challenge and has resulted in the hospitalizations and deaths even of young people. So to help combat this most recent challenge and other dangerous social media trends involving these over-the-counter and prescription drugs, the FDA provided some tips for parents in the warning letter. So the agency recommended locking up medications and having a serious conversation with children and teens. So they said in the letter, sit down with your children and discuss the dangers of misusing drugs and how social media trends can lead to real and sometimes irreversible damage. Remind your children that overdoses can occur with over-the-counter drugs as well as prescription drugs. So the FDA also advised that you call 911 if you believe your child has taken too much medication and is hallucinating or showing other signs of drug misuse. So pretty ridiculous, I know, but it just reminded me also of, the pink sauce that we had talked about, and so many sort of challenges or dangerous products coming out of TikTok and other social media. And I just wanted to sort of get your perspective on this. Obviously we're not teenagers anymore. However, I believe still that if I was a teenager, I would probably
be that
know
stupid.
better. I think I would know better. It's hard to say. We didn't have TikTok when we were teenagers, but I truly believe that the three of us at least would have known better. And I'm worried for how many don't know better. And at what point do you say, oh, they didn't know, or that doesn't seem like a valid enough excuse. But what are your thoughts on like these dangerous challenges, especially ones that involve food and where the FDA has to get involved? Like, do you think that do you think this is even enough from the FDA? Do you think that the FDA can even stop things like this from happening?
Okay, so throughout this story, I was just perpetually shaking my head, and I'm probably getting a stiff neck because of this, but oh my God, when you think things can't get any worse on social media. Okay, so your question, should the FDA do more? Yes, of course they should do more because, they're the authority on regulating drugs and putting out the messaging as to what is safe and what is not. But at the same time, I think social media platforms like TikTok need to be held more accountable. How can they let this kind of content be on their platform? This is absolutely ridiculous. If you go on Instagram and things, I hear every day there's more and more screening of what you can post and what you can, about people's videos being taken down because of so-and-so, and things, and yet you have these kinds of dangerous challenges being acceptable and being in mass circulation on social media. These platforms need to be held accountable, in my opinion. It's what are they doing? What are you doing with these idiotic challenges that are posing harm to people? People can die. This is, I'd take them to court if I could. I'm so cheesed. I can't believe it.
That's such a great point. We often, I don't know, I've seen so many YouTube videos, for example, of people getting copyright strikes
because of music or something in the background.
Really stupid reasons to be taken down or given a warning, but yet we see these things circulating all the time.
Definitely challenges.
Mm-hmm. And I also wonder, are teens and younger people these days just more willing to take on a risk, or did they just not understand the consequences of these actions? I truly don't know.
I think the FDA did mention peer pressure. That's a part of it, and just being so engrossed in social media, right? Social media is such a big part of people's lives, especially younger people, and so I guess they're not able to discern just because it's on social media and just because everyone is doing it, it's this should be fine. This is the next thing to do because everyone's doing it and it's cool. It's on it's on TikTok. It's a challenge. It's just ridiculous. I think they've just lost touch. I think a lot of people lose touch with reality when they're on social media. So.
Yeah, and also that, a lot of these challenges are stemming from over-the-counter prescriptions and just things like that. They may think, oh, it's over-the-counter. These aren't opioids. This isn't street drugs. They're fine. But
people overdose on pills. You can overdose on any prescription medication or over-the-counter medication. So it's I don't know. It's just. I just think they're so wrapped up in their social media lives that they just can't decipher again, what's real versus fiction versus safe versus dangerous anymore. Those lines have been blurred on social media. And I think these platforms need to be held accountable for that.
Yeah, I was also reading an article that actually after the FDA announcement about the chicken and NyQuil, like the views on these challenges have increased.
Yeah, right.
And it's
Publicity.
like, why didn't you guys take it off, right? Like,
Right.
there's an FDA warning. Like, why are the views on these videos increasing? Like, why aren't these videos taken down?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's very strange.
Yeah, because, for example, like, let's say you and I were, oh, what's this? Let's go check it out. That's going to increase the view. The algorithm and all that crap is going to push that video forward, and then more stupid people are going to, like, be watching it and going to be doing it, which is going to exacerbate the problem. So yeah, exactly, Vera. Like, why not just take them down?
Yeah, and on every social media, there is, like, you can press a button to, like, report the content. So I think maybe it's just a matter of having more people to review.
True.
Like,
yeah.
Or maybe even having, like, some safety specialists or even perhaps medical specialists work and maybe hire some of those kind of people to review some of these, you know, challenges or whatever. But I honestly, it's hard for me to put the blame on children or perhaps some adults even that are just very gullible and they just don't know better, right? Maybe perhaps they just don't know better, right? So yeah, not everyone, for example, understands that, like, you know, medication can be dangerous. You can overdose. You're not supposed to boil it, etc. Like, they just don't know. And we can't put the blame on them. I think it's people who should know better, right? Like, maybe the people who received a report of that and didn't take action, right? So
now, are these FDA warnings about this on TikTok, and are these going viral? Are people sharing that? Because, like, the FDA, like, who's gonna, like, you know, they're teenagers or, like, you know, kids. They're not following what the FDA is saying. They barely know what the FDA probably is, right? So it's kind of like, I don't know. There's that gap between how do you reach those audiences, and you got to go to TikTok, I think. And the FDA needs to get its videos out there. So it's just, man.
Yeah,
so
there's
disturbing. Yeah.
a lot of moving parts, and it's true. It's really hard to place the blame on, like, a specific person, agency, company. Like, it's too difficult to pin down, like, whose fault this is. But yeah, I think by the time these videos amass millions of views on TikTok, even if they get taken down, which I am in favor of, it's almost like too late in a way. Like, this idea is already in their minds, and, like, they can still try this. And, like, yeah, there's a lot of ways to prevent this, obviously, but yeah, there are still some people who will, you know, monkey see, monkey do. And if you don't see the consequences of it on TikTok or anywhere, then you're going to think, oh, it's safe. Like, how about you show someone, like, overdosing on NyQuil? Okay, then you're probably not going to want to do it. It's like, where you only get one side of the story, and you get a tutorial on how to make this really vile looking thing that will probably not help you in any way, shape, or form. Another thing, it's like, why do you even want to eat this?
Yeah, why would you want to eat that? Like, what?
It's not appetizing at all.
Exactly. Like, what kind of a flavor are you adding to your chicken? Like, NyQuil, like, why? Didn't kids used to hate medicine growing up? Do these kids like this stuff? Like, now, like, what's changed? I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't know. And remember, like,
It's
also
disgusting. Yeah.
I recall the, like, Tide Pod challenge as well. People eating Tide Pods. That one, I was like, yeah, they look kind of, like, juicy and gummy bear like in a way, but this just looks disgusting. And another, and it's like, why do you need to add it to chicken either? Like, you can
why
just
chicken?
drink
like,
it.
Why is, I don't know. Maybe there's just something about boiling up a concoction and the chicken. Yeah.
The chicken changes color, becomes like pink or something, maybe.
Blue or whatever,
okay.
Color NyQuil is. Yeah, there's a lot of whys we're asking, and
are teens cooking valid. Chicken even? Like, do teens cook? I don't remember cooking as a teenager. Like, what's going on?
Behind the scenes, I guess.
Yeah, like, what is going on? I have no idea anymore.
Yeah.
That's why I'm not on. I am on TikTok. I was on it for about a couple of months, and I was like, I can't do this.
Yeah, it can be hard to be a witness to these things and feel powerless and not be able to do anything about it. But
I might go on just to report all of this nonsense.
Yes, be the community leader that we
need.
All right. Well, that's the end of this episode of the Xtalks Food Podcast. If you like today's show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Thanks, everyone, and see you next week. Bye.
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 Thanks for listening to the Xtalks Food Industry Podcast. If you enjoyed our discussions today, please share the episode with your friends and colleagues, and be sure to subscribe in order to be notified when a new episode is released. To join in on the discussion, you can find Xtalks on social media, email podcast@xtalks.com, or comment on the articles directly. Links are in the show description. Take a moment to join our community at xtalks.com to get access to everything we have to offer, including webinars, job listings, virtual meetings, articles, and more. The views and opinions expressed in the podcast are those of the speakers sharing them. They should not be taken as professional advice and do not necessarily reflect the policy or position Honeycomb Worldwide. For further information, email us at podcast@xtalks.com. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.